Hi, Ron Benning here with your Sacramento Fourplex market update for May of 2026. In this video, we're going to look at what happened in the Fourplex market in April, what the numbers are telling us about pricing and buyer activity, and what that means for inventory as we move deeper into the second quarter of 2026. So make sure you watch to the end so you know exactly where the market is headed. And as always, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please subscribe now so that you won't miss any future market updates and cash flow alerts. April 2026 was a buyer's market for Sacramento Fourplexes. The month's inventory based on closed sales came in at 35 months. Now, I know that number sounds extreme, but here's the context. Only one fourplex sold in April. When you only have one sale in an entire month, the months of inventory calculation gets wildly inflated. So take that 35-month supply number with a grain of salt. The real story is the pending activity and the overall trend, which I'll get to in a moment. But regardless of how you slice it, this is firmly a buyer's market. Anything above 6 months favors buyers. Let's look at the closed activities. Only one fourplex sold in April. That's down 83.3% from the 6 sales in April of last year and down 80% from the 5 sales we had the last month. That's significant slowdown. Now, 1 month of low sales doesn't necessarily mean the sky is falling, especially in a market this small where volume can swing dramatically month to month. But it does tell us that buyers are being very selective right now. Here's the good news. Pending sales came back this month after dropping to 0 last month, which I flagged as something to watch closely. We now have 3 properties under contract. That's down 40% from last year, though. But the fact that we went from 0 to 3 is a positive sign. It tells us buyers are still in the market and they're just being very disciplined about what they're willing to pull the trigger on. On the inventory side, active listings continue to grow. Inventory was up 25% from last year and up 9.4% from last month. That means more choices for buyers, but also more competition for sellers. This growing inventory combined with very low sales activity is what's keeping this deep into a buyer's market. Now, let's look at pricing, and this is where I need to give you a big caveat. With only one sale in April, these numbers reflect a single transaction, not a broad market trend. The average and median sold price both came in at $720,000. Since there was only one sale, that's down 6.7% from last year's $772 and down 35.2% from last month's $1,111,000. But again, last month's average was pulled up by higher price sales. And this month we had one sale at $720,000. The 6 month trend for both the average and median sold prices is neutral at this point. The average for sale price came in at $966,000, which is down 17.6% from last year's $1,173,000, but up slightly 1.7% from last month's $950,000. Sellers are continuing to adjust their pricing expectations downward compared to a year ago, which is a healthy sign for the market. Here's my pro tip. I always share that most non-experts don't see with fourplexes. There are really 2 markets happening at the same time in Sacramento Fourplex market. The East Sacramento market and the Midtown market are one, and then there's the rest of the county. A disproportionate share of sales over the last several months have been concentrated in just a few zip codes in East Sac and Midtown. Outside those zip codes, prices have been coming down, and properties not priced aggressively using the income approach are selling at a large discount. It can be misleading if we only look at the average list prices and sale prices because these 2 markets behave very differently. The days on the market in April came in at just 7 days. That's down 79.4% from last month's 34 days and down 88.5% from the 61 days in April of last year. But that was heavily influenced by that one low sale. So I wouldn't get too excited about that number being lower. Buyer negotiating power which is the sold to original list price ratio, came in at 96% this month. That's slightly down from last month's 95%. And the 6 month trend is actually rising, which is encouraging, but it's still down 4% from last year's 100%, which means they were selling at full price last year. Buyers are still negotiating about 4% off the original list price on average. And if a property has promise, we just need to make an offer that makes sense, even if it's below the typical average discount we're seeing now. The break-even GRM for a Sacramento Fourplex this month is 11.24, and this is based on an interest rate somewhere between 6.75% and 7%. GRM discipline is absolutely critical. Interest rates are currently around 6.9, and with maybe a point, you could get it down into the 6.75 on a 30-year fix. That's up from last month's 6.75. And I've said before, rates don't have to spike to change behaviors. They just have to move enough to affect cash flow calculations. At these levels, GRM discipline is more critical than ever. We've gone from 6.4% a couple of months ago to nearly 7% today. That's a meaningful move in the short-term window, and it directly impacts your break-even point on every deal. Looking ahead over the next 45 days, I expect inventory to remain elevated and buyer activity to stay selective. We went from 0 pendings last month to 3 this month, which is encouraging, but the overall pace is slow. Interest rates will continue to be a key factor, and if rates come back down, we could see renewed buyer activity. But if they push higher past 7%, expect affordability pressures to increase and buyer hesitation to grow even more. For buyers, this is still one of the best opportunities we've seen in the fourplex market in a while. You have growing inventory, you have negotiation room with buyers getting around 4% off the list price, and you also have less competition for other buyers and sellers and are becoming more realistic on pricing. Don't be afraid to make offers that make sense for you. If you don't like what you see after the inspection, you don't have to move forward. Making an offer is simply your ticket to get a closer look inside. You should also consider rates will probably come down later in the year, so we should discuss financing options with that in mind. Seller strategy. For sellers, pricing strategy is important given the increasing inventory. With elevated inventory and just one sale this month, buyers are extremely selective and overpriced listings are just going to sit. If your property's priced correctly, using the income approach and positioned well, it will still attract interest. The 3 new pendings this month tell us demand exists, but it has to make sense financially for buyers at today's rates. Focusing on the income approach is mandatory for pricing. If you'd like my weekly GRM report or an MLS feed for all the active fourplexes and you're not receiving it, check the links below. For sellers, if you'd like a property evaluation or rent analysis for your fourplex, those links are in the description as well. And whether you're planning to buy or sell in the next 7 days or 7 months, give me a call or a text. I'd be happy to help you plan a smooth and profitable real estate transaction.